We're joined this morning by Mr. Anthony Aka, who is the acting CEO of NERC. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well. So that's the big question now. Why this increase in tariff?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's important for us to understand that electricity is a product, should be rightly priced. And Nigeria has done the right thing by privatizing the sector. So it's no longer government-owned or government-controlled. And for the operators to deliver the required services, we have to make sure that we give them a cost-reflective tariff or a market-realistic tariff that covers their cost of production, a reasonable return, and then hold them responsible to deliver on their service agreements with the customers. What we've noticed over the past is that, like last year, we froze the R2 tariff. We also zeroed out the commercial collection losses. And those two mistakes triggered about 187 billion gap in the market. It's not about the distribution companies, it's about the whole value chain, from distribution company down to transmission, down to GENCOs, down to the gas aggregators. And as we speak, prior to this tariff review, you have a situation where the GENCOs were producing power and they were getting less than 45% of their invoice bill. Of course, they're already obligated to the gas aggregators. You have the transmission company, they couldn't have enough revenue to upgrade their transmission infrastructure. The distribution companies could not also deliver on their own service agreement because their service agreement were predicated on we giving them a cost-reflective tariff. So it's important that what has been done in India, because we copied this model in New Delhi. In New Delhi, when they did their reform, they had the same situation with us. They have the same, close to the same ATC and C losses were even higher than Nigeria. They have frequent light blackouts and the rest of them.
Did they have discos that failed to meet up with the agreement for MITO in terms of meeting the obligations with metering people?
What they triggered was during the reform process, they started with a market realistic tariff from day one. In our own situation, we didn't start with a market realistic or cost reflective tariff from day one.
So consumers will not have to pay for that?
Because there are shortfalls in the market, because at the end of the day, the consumers are the ones that are getting the electricity. But what is fundamental is that as regulator, in order to balance the interests of the consumers and the operators in the sector want a market realistic tariff. As much as possible, if you give them opportunity, they want to game the system. They may want to. The consumers on the other side want more or less a free tariff. And their main concerns are issues about fees charges, issues about crazy billing, issues about not having metering. So as regulator, in coming up with this tariff model, we balance that issue. And that's why in this model that we have, the MITO 2015, we have robust customer complaint or customer protection mechanisms inbuilt in there. The distribution companies that are mandated now to meter all Nigerians, they don't have any excuse whatsoever now because they have their cost-reflective tariff. Secondly, also, the Nigerian consumers have the powers to reject any bill that they feel, based on their own analysis, could be a crazy bill.
But that has always been on paper.
No, it's not on paper. Because what it means now is that you can reject that bill and pay only your last contested bill. Okay. What it means is that distribution companies, if you don't want to lose that revenue, you rush and go meter those Nigerians. It came so bad that distribution companies were rejecting power.
Well, we'll come to that, but let me take you back to part of the reasons why you're at least increasing this tariff. Then they ask you, yes, you have lofty plans in terms of providing the enabling environment to ensure the sector thrives and survives and gives Nigerians what they want. But do you have to increase the tariff first? In other words, making consumers pay for what they're not receiving before you achieve that aim?
No, I think it's important for us to say that the tariff we've done is for Nigerians to pay the right price for the quantum of power that you get. What it means is that this is a long-term business. It's very capital intensive. And therefore, for any investor to do this business, he has to rely on loans. And for you to go to the banks, for example, the bank will ask you, what is the tariff guaranteed for the next 10 years? And you tell him, for example, I'm going to produce bread, and the cost of bread is 6 naira. The regulator has said that it's 5 naira. When I'm done with building all the factories and everything and doing the whole thing, he will increase it to 8 naira. No bank will give you that loan facility. What is fundamentally important is that Nigerians will only pay that tariff that they consume.
But the thing is that in terms of the banks and the funding, CBN has a 213 billion naira power intervention fund. And as at December last year, I think they've paid up to, let me double check that, 64.7 billion naira.
Yeah.
And I remember that Kano Disco, they testified that yes, we received about 7.6 billion naira from CBN. So why are they looking for more tariff? If you say it's a long-term business, why are they in a rush to get more money when it's a long-term? CBN is funding them and you're still requesting for more money.
No, CBN is not funding them. What CBN did was to provide like a grant, a loan, to take care of the shortfall going backward. Because we had a situation where there was so much accumulated debt, like the gas aggregators were not paid. And there was no incentive for them to go into gas production for Nigeria. And therefore, there was a need for us to find a scheme that would take care of those shortfalls in order to jumpstart again the system. It came to a point where you could say that the whole system was more like on a comatose. Because if we...
In spite of these funds that CBN has
The CBN funding is not a free money. The CBN funding as we speak today is predicated on we also having a cost-reflective tariff or a market-reflective tariff. If the tariff is not realistic, that CBN funding will not come in. Because the CBN funding was given to them because they were aware that based on the cash flow and the tariff, they will be able to pay back the loan. Those money that are given by the CBN are also factored into the tariff. So the tariff will recover those money back. But the critical point about is that the distribution companies, we have already calibrated the fact that their ATC and C going forward, they must improve on efficiency. What it means is that we've given them a certain threshold for ATC and C losses. Next year, slightly lower. They must work hard to improve their efficiency within that level of next year and going forward. And after 2 years or 3 years, the tariff, a combination of the ATC and C going down and more improved power, the tariff is expected to start going down.
So you've obviously engaged this, the DISCOs, the GENCOs, the stakeholders in that industry. Apart from the consumers, what do you say to your engagement or even the electricity companies' engagement with the consumers?
We did engage the consumers. This tariff is a sector tariff. It's a bottom-up tariff. We mandated distribution companies that they should go back to their customers and engage them and show us proof that they engage them on the need for them to have a new tariff. Then when they brought this back, we now vetted each of the tariff items line by line.
What was the proof they brought to you?
Attendance. We also did some spot audit to check whether it was true. Of course, in some situations, some consumers will say, no, we don't want tariff increase. But the fundamental point is that they engage the consumers. And we also, in line with making our regulations, also advertise in the newspapers, in the television, calling stakeholders that we need their input into a new tariff that we're looking into. But the point is that sometimes you find that some organized groups will not submit their own submissions. However, under the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, within 60 days of any of our regulations, any aggrieved party has the right to file a petition before the commission.
No, we asked Dr. George, Mr. George Tomi about the investors talking about the DISCOs, and it would seem as if due diligence wasn't done when they were coming into all of this. Do you think they had a study and understanding of the sector they were coming into? Because this is not the first time we're getting to see an increase. For most Nigerians, they feel that if we had done just one increase, it shows some fair understanding of what exactly the DISCOs are about. But with 1, 2, 3, this looks like almost the 5th increase they're getting to see. Was there due diligence on the part of the investors?
Well, I cannot say categorically if they did due diligence, because they are the one that went in to assess this company. But of course, we know that that time there was also resistance by labor, to allow them access to look at the books. You may be right that they did not dimension very well the challenges inherent in the sector. However, what is important there is that they're into the business, they've signed up the agreement, we've provided them the cost-reflective tariff, and they must have to provide that service agreement that they signed with the government going forward. That's what's fundamental for us as regulators.
So let's
as regulator, sorry, Mark, and again, as regulator, when you put deadline and you get to the date, the D-Day, and you extend it again, that's a a trust issue here now, because for the consumer, if you say you're giving the discos this X amount of time to meter almost everyone, or to do X, Y, and Z, and for the first time they got there and they passed and they just didn't meet up with the deadline, how sure are you that they will meet the 18-month? Is it? No, I think it's October now. You've given them again till October.
October this year.
This year,
Isn't it?
No. Not October this year.
When?
You
That's what
moved
Dr.
it again?
Salamadi said. When is the new date now?
For metering of the customers?
Yeah, if you don't meet all the customers, after October 2016.
What he may be referring to is the option of Nigerian consumers going to pay on your own. You can advance money under what is called
No, not the cap me. No, what I said.
We did not give up to October.
When is it?
What is fundamental is that the tariff order says 1 year. Yes, they signed the performance agreement. Their performance agreement, which they signed with the BPE, is a 5-year plan. But we are telling them that we want a robust metering done within a year.
so within a year.
That's what we are telling them. But they signed the performance agreement with the BPE that they're going to do that.
So if it's within a year, we're still in order when we say October. Still within 1 year.
No, because the tariff took effect on February.
And that's just 2 months, a month lost. That's 11 months.
Yeah, fundamentally, even as of yesterday when we had a stakeholders meeting with the Honorable Minister, it was clearly emphasized to them that we expect you to demeter this S number of people between this time and this time. What is most important for us is that significantly they will bridge that metering gap, because we also have to merge the fact that they signed the performance agreement.
Absolutely.
That is slightly different from the order that we gave them. So we also have to recognize that. But fundamental point there is that we've put a trigger that touches on their bottom line. And that trigger there is that the Nigerian consumer, and it's only the Nigerian consumers that are not metered that will most likely
those
say
that are
no.
not metered.
Those Nigerian consumers that are not metered will be the ones that most likely will say, no, I don't believe in this bill, I'm not going to pay it.
Yeah, because they fall under the category of those who get the estimated bill.
Yes, and then when they do that, it affects the revenue of the distribution companies. And if the distribution company wants to avoid that, they should rush to go and meter them. So we've set up a regulatory mechanism that will trigger that protection of that issue of Nigerians not having meters. That to me is the most fundamental thing that we did, because to them it's a lot better for them to rush as much as they could to meter all Nigerians and avoid the consequences of a lot of Nigerians saying no for whatever reason that they cannot meter Nigerians.